Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening a door onto a really devastating chapter in American history, specifically 1920s Oklahoma.
Yeah.
This is a story about, well, staggering wealth, racial prejudice, and a campaign of cold, systematic murder targeting the members of the Osage Nation, a tragedy they actually called the Reign of Terror.
Yeah, it's just such a profound story, and it really speaks to institutional failure
Mm.
and deep personal betrayal. Our source material for this gives us this exhaustive investigation into the crisis. We're going to really focus on the anatomy of the conspiracy, the complete failure of justice at the local level,
Right.
and then the eventual pretty precarious federal intervention that finally exposed who was behind it all, at least the core group.
And to really grasp the weight of this, I think we need to start with one person, Molly Burkhart. So it's May 1921. We're in Gray Horse, Oklahoma, one of these oil boom towns.
Yeah.
And Molly is just gripped by this creeping dread.
Yeah, because her sister, Anna Brown, has vanished.
Exactly. Anna was 34, not for drinking, going on these sprees in the chaotic oil towns.
Right.
But this disappearance, it just feels different, colder, and it's gone on way too long.
And this fear, it wasn't exactly new for Molly, was it? She'd already dealt with loss that felt suspicious.
That's right. Her sister, Minnie, had died suddenly just 3 years before this, aged only 27.
And the official reason was just this vague, peculiar wasting illness.
Peculiar wasting illness,
Yeah.
yeah. But even then, Molly had her private doubts, didn't she?
She did. And the terrible thread connecting Molly, Anna, Minnie, and their mother, Lizzie, well, that's the terrifying heart of this story. All of them were inscribed on the Osage roll.
And that inscription, that single fact,
Yeah.
meant they were beneficiaries of this almost unimaginable geological lottery.
Yeah.
It's truly an unbelievable twist of fate.
Absolutely. Because when the Osage were forcibly relocated from Kansas back in the 1870s,
Yeah.
the lands they eventually purchased in Oklahoma, well, settlers thought it was worthless, just rocky, hilly land, no good for farming.
Right, totally unsuitable for conventional farming.
Turns out it was situated directly on top of what would become some of the largest, richest oil deposits in the entire United States.
Just sitting there.
Just sitting there. The wealth generation that followed was, instant and staggering. It was all formalized through something called the headrights system. Basically, every registered Osage member got a quarterly check.
A check from what?
From the leases and royalties paid by the oil companies drilling on their land. And to put this into perspective, get this. In 1923 alone, just 1 year, the tribe collectively took in over $30 million.
$30 million
Yep.
in 1923.
Yep.
So adjusted for inflation, what are we talking about today?
We're talking over $400 million today.
$400 million. That's astronomical.
And it wasn't spread across a huge population either. It meant the Osage Nation were literally the wealthiest people per capita in the world.
The wealthiest people per capita.
In the world.
Yep. There was this famous quote from the New York Weekly Outlook magazine at the time. They said the Osage enjoyed an income that turns bankers green with envy. I bet it did.
But this extraordinary wealth, this black gold, it wasn't a blessing. It became this irresistible magnet for criminals. And it quickly became a curse for the people who actually owned it.
Okay, so let's transition now. How did this paradox get engineered? Let's talk about the black gold and the system of control. What's really fascinating here historically is the Osage's foresight in choosing that specific land.
It really is.
Yeah.
The chief at the time, Watianka, he deliberately selected this rough, hilly territory.
Why?
Well, based on their history of being displaced over and over,
Right.
he believed, or at least hoped, that the white man will not come to this land or put iron thing in ground here. They just wanted a permanent, undisturbed home.
Secure their home, finally.
Exactly. And that choice, that very wise choice, unintentionally secured their mineral rights when the allotment process happened in 1906.
Ah, okay. So how did that work?
Well, members could sell their surface land, the land itself, but the mineral rights, the headrights, which turned out to be incredibly lucrative, those were retained by the tribe as a trust.
A trust.
Which effectively created what's been called the first underground reservation. And crucially, these headrights couldn't be bought or sold.
Ah, that's the key.
That is the key. They could only be inherited by future generations. And this system created a financial pool that was just immense and incredibly concentrated.
And the sheer spectacle of this wealth erupting, literally erupting from the ground, must have been overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely. You read accounts of Molly and other Osage members rushing to see the gushers. Workers would set off these deep charges of nitroglycerin, they called them torpedoes,
Right.
and suddenly, boom, this column of black oil would just shoot 50, maybe 100 feet into the air.
Wow. Imagine seeing that.
These sources described this massive black spray earthing over the rigging, rising like an angel of death.
That's a chilling image. An angel of death.
It really is, and it's such potent foreshadowing, isn't it? Because this wealth, it instantly attracted this overwhelming flood of non-Osage people just wanting a piece of the action.
And this was compounded by, well, deep racial prejudice, right?
Absolutely. White alarm over Osage wealth was widespread, and it was fueled by these sensational, often ridiculous press reports.
Like what? What kind of stories?
Oh, tales of Osage members just discarding grand pianos on their front lawns.
Seriously?
Or replacing these expensive cars just because they got a flat tire. Probably mostly untrue. But these stories fed this narrative of Osage improvidence.
Improvidence. Like they couldn't handle their own money?
Exactly. And that idea, that racist idea of improvidence, became the justification for the federal guardianship system.
Ah, okay, so the government steps in.
The U.S. government mandated that white guardians had to be assigned to any Osage deemed incompetent.
And who decided who was incompetent?
Well, typically it was almost always applied to full-blooded Osage members. And get this, even if they had millions flowing into their trust accounts from the oil,
Yeah.
this system restricted their annual withdrawal to maybe only a few $1,000s.
Just a few thousand out of millions.
Yeah. So this guardianship system, it really seemed designed less for protection and more for just systemic exploitation.
It sounds like it.
The Osage chief at the time, Bacon Rind, he famously lamented that the wealth attracted criminals of every breed of miscreant. He called them a flock of buzzards.
A flock of buzzards. That's vivid.
And these were, unscrupulous lawyers, accountants, local merchants. They engaged in rampant graft. They forced the Osage to pay special prices.
Special meaning inflated.
Outrageously inflated prices for
Yeah.
basic goods, yeah.
So the corruption wasn't just a few bad apples, it was systemic.
Oh, deeply systemic, rooted in the local economy. Guardians pilfered millions. We know that before 1925, an estimated $8 million was stolen directly from the restricted accounts of the Osage.
$8 million.
Yeah.
How? How are they doing it?
Oh, the schemes were, ingenious in their depravity. Guardians would demand payment for imaginary homes or repair services that never happened. They'd buy goods from their own stores at exorbitant rates and then charge them back to their Osage wards. It was basically state-sanctioned theft.
State-sanctioned theft and that financial groundwork, that system, it laid the foundation for violence, didn't it?
It absolutely did. Which brings us directly to the dark escalation of violence that just decimated Molly Burkhart's family. Let's focus back on Anna Brown, Molly's sister who vanished.
Right.
Leading up to her disappearance, Anna had been struggling. She was newly divorced, drinking heavily, often in these chaotic local boom towns.
Like whiz-bang. I read about that place.
Exactly, whiz-bang. The nickname supposedly came from the idea that people whizzed all day and banged all night.
Yeah.
Captures the atmosphere perfectly.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
So the day she vanished, May 21st, 1921,
Right.
Molly was hosting a luncheon.
Yes. And Anna was there, drinking heavily, apparently quarreled with her family. That evening, Molly's brother-in-law, Brian Burkhart, offered to drive Anna home.
Just a simple offer of a ride.
A simple offer, and that was the last time Molly saw her sister alive. About a week later, Anna's body was found. Partially decomposed, discovered by an oil worker, twisted in the mud at the bottom of a ravine.
Oh, that's horrific.
It was a harrowing scene. Identification was difficult, obviously, but they managed to confirm it was Anna through her distinctive Indian blanket, her clothes, and her gold dental fillings.
Gold fillings.
Yeah. Her brother-in-law, Bill Smith, actually had the awful task of prying open her mouth to make the final confirmation.
God, that's grim. And the official response. You mentioned failure earlier.
Yeah, it was an immediate failure, possibly even an active cover-up, looking back. A coroner's inquest was hastily convened right there at the ravine, led by just a local justice of the peace.
At the ravine. Not even back in town.
Nope. Two doctors, brothers named David and James Shown, examined the body on a plank laid out there. They found a small circular hole in the back of her skull.
Execution style.
Strongly suggesting execution-style shooting, yeah. Likely with a .32 caliber pistol.
Okay, so they found the bullet hole.
They found the hole. But here's the critical detail, the thing that points to early corruption, or at least extreme incompetence. When the Shown brothers cut through her cranium, lifted her brain, and probed the wound channel, the bullet was, quote, nowhere to be found.
The bullet vanished. during the autopsy.
Vanished. The key piece of physical evidence, gone. So this lack of any rigorous procedure, was it just incompetence? Or was it a conscious act to make sure the murder investigation failed before it even really started?
That's a very disturbing question.
It is. And Anna wasn't even the first victim following this pattern.
Right. You mentioned someone else earlier.
Yeah, just a week before Anna disappeared, Charles Whitehorn, apparently a well-liked, genial Osage man, he'd also been found murdered execution style, also shot with a suspected .32 caliber pistol.
Wow. So the pattern was already there.
The pattern was emerging. And then the terror just closed right in on Molly's immediate family. Less than 2 months after Anna's murder, in July 1921, Molly's mother, Lizzie, died suddenly.
Suddenly. Any known cause?
No natural cause was ever successfully pinpointed or documented. Nothing solid. And Bill Smith, Molly's brother-in-law, the one who'd identified Anna's body, he grew fiercely suspicious. He started telling people he believed Lizzie had been poisoned. He was convinced all 3 deaths, Minnie's, Anna's, Lizzie's, were directly linked to the black gold.
He saw the connection. The money.
He saw the connection.
And for you, the listener, I think the insidious nature of this crime is really crucial to understand here. The murders weren't always these, violent shootings like Anna's or Whitehorn's.
No, often they were quiet, hidden, designed to look like natural deaths.
Right, like consumption, wasting illness, or some sudden disease.
Exactly. And the killers, they were often using family connections, positions of trust, to eliminate heirs one by one, quietly. They were maximizing the accumulation of those valuable headrights before, perhaps, striking the final blow.
Which leads us right to the failures, the systemic failures of the local authorities.
Yeah, the Osage County Sheriff at the time was a man named Harv M. Fries, apparently a very large man, a frontiersman type.
And his reputation?
Well, his official reputation was supposedly a terror to evildoers, but there were persistent rumors. Citizens had even issued formal resolutions urging him to perform his sworn duty, basically calling him out. The rumors suggested he was suspiciously cozy with known criminals. Bootleggers, gamblers, people like Kelsey Morrison and Henry Grammer, names that become important later.
So a potentially compromised sheriff. And the crime scene.
Oh, the contamination was just comprehensive. The lawmen were, frankly, utterly untrained for this kind of investigation. They failed to make a cast of the tire marks found near Anna's body. They didn't dust a nearby moonshine bottle for fingerprints. They didn't even photograph the ravine where she was found.
So basic forensic work just wasn't done?
Not at all. Crucial evidence was immediately lost right from the start.
Did they have any suspects initially?
They did briefly detain Brian Burkhart, the brother-in-law who drove Anna home, and also Ernest Burkhart, who was Molly's husband. But they released them almost immediately. Lack of evidence.
Then
the authorities wasted valuable time chasing this false confession. Some forger claimed he'd killed Anna on behalf of her ex-husband, Oda Brown, hoping to get a lighter sentence for his own crimes.
A complete red herring.
A complete red herring. Created chaos, diverted attention from the real plot that was unfolding.
So you have this environment, immense wealth, deep prejudice, and basically non-existent or incompetent local law enforcement.
It was the perfect breeding ground for a master criminal.
And that man was William Hale.
William Hale, Ernest Burkhart's uncle. He arrived in the Osage territory with next to nothing, famously just carrying an Old Testament.
Really? Just the Bible?
That's the story. Yet he somehow rapidly amassed 45,000 acres of land and a fortune. And he consciously remade his public image too. Transformed himself from just a rugged cowboy into this high-class gentleman who would apparently recite poetry.
Quite the transformation.
And the irony here is just profound. Hale managed to secure the honorary title of a reserve deputy sheriff.
So he had a badge.
He had a badge, could carry a cane, and positioned himself as this figure of authority. He cultivated this reputation as the king of the Osage Hills. He was seen as the county's greatest benefactor, donating generously to Osage charities and local causes.
Laying the part of the friend to the Osage.
Exactly. And immediately following Anna's death, Hale was one of the first people out there publicly swearing he would bring her killer to justice, offering rewards even.
Wow. So this position of trust, It gave him incredible influence over the initial inquiries, didn't it?
It absolutely did. He could observe, influence, maybe even manipulate things. At the inquest for Anna, Molly, who was obviously traumatized but cooperating, she spoke very succinctly. But Brian Burkhart,
The one who drove Anna home.
yes, he committed the crucial act of perjury. He lied under oath. He claimed he dropped Anna off between 4:30 and 5 p.m. and hadn't seen her since.
Giving himself an alibi.
An airtight alibi, supposedly. And it was conveniently confirmed by his visiting relatives who were staying with him. Hale orchestrated that whole cover story.
Unbelievable.
So despite the mounting deaths, despite Bill Smith's growing certainty that something was terribly wrong, the local authorities just concluded that both Anna Brown and Charles Whitehorn died at the hands of parties unknown.
Case closed, basically.
Case closed locally. But the reign of terror, it wasn't slowing down. It was actually escalating.
Okay, so what was the next phase?
The next phase of the conspiracy really kicks off in February 1923, the murder of Henry Roan, another Osage member.
Henry Roan. What happened to him?
Roan had recently divorced his wife. He disappeared, and about 10 days later, his body was found shot, execution style, in his car. The body was apparently mummified by this severe cold.
Execution style again. And Hale.
Hale positioned himself right in the middle of the tragedy again. He even served as a pallbearer at Roan's funeral, projecting this image of deep sorrow.
But what was the motive? Was it headrights again?
Well, Hale had tried to buy Roan's headright, which was illegal, remember? Headrights couldn't be sold.
Right.
But he had successfully made himself the beneficiary of Roan's $25,000 life insurance policy.
Ah, the insurance angle. $25,000.
A significant sum then. And the sources even confirm this sort of black humor Hale used to conceal his intent. Apparently, a doctor once casually asked Hale if he planned to kill Roan.
Hale just laughed and replied, hell yes.
He said that out loud.
According to sources, yes.
Yeah.
Just brazen.
And was he subtle about covering his tracks this time?
Not particularly.
Yeah.
He actively tried to frame other people. He went to this guy, Roy Bunch, who was apparently having an affair with Roan's widow. Hale offered Bunch money to just flee town.
Why would he do that?
Well, think about it. If Bunch suddenly runs away right after Roan is murdered.
He looks guilty.
Exactly. It diverts attention, makes Bunch the prime suspect, and takes any heat off Hale and the real killers.
Wow. That's calculated. Extremely calculated. This systematic killing, anyone linked to Molly's family's headrights or anyone who became a threat to the conspiracy, it all culminated in the most shocking, the most public act of violence yet.
The bombing.
The bombing and the elimination of the Smiths.
So this was Molly's last surviving sister, Rita, and her husband, Bill Smith.
That's right. They were the final immediate targets in that Burkhart family line. And Bill, remember, he had become a real danger to Hale.
Because he was investigating on his own.
Yes, doing his own amateur investigation. He'd confided in people that he felt he was getting warm, getting close to the truth.
Then.
March 1923. Their house was just obliterated. A massive dynamite blast. Rita was killed instantly.
Horrifying. Was anyone around? Police?
Well, the source material highlights the truly cynical planning behind this. The blast occurred when the local sheriff and deputies were conveniently absent.
Absent? Where were they?
They were away in Oklahoma City for a court case. It seems like deliberate timing, ensuring the local police couldn't immediately respond or secure the scene properly.
Unbelievable. What about Bill? Did he survive?
Bill Smith survived the initial blast, but he was critically injured, horribly burned. He lived in agony for 4 days.
Oh my God. Did he say anything?
He did. While he was dying, apparently in a state of delirium, he muttered the truth to the attendants who were there. He said his only two enemies in the world were William K. Hale and Ernest Burkhart.
He named them Hale and Molly's husband, Ernest.
He named them, and this is where that institutional corruption just shows its vile face again.
How so?
The Schown doctors, remember them? The brothers who botched Anna's autopsy.
Yes.
They heard Bill Smith's dying declaration, and they concealed it.
They hid it. Instead of telling the authorities.
Instead of recording his statement, they prioritized their own financial gain. They actually orchestrated a meeting so that one of them, James Schown, could be named the administrator of Rita's valuable estate.
Wait, the doctor became the administrator of the woman whose husband just accused Hale and Burkhart.
Exactly. It wasn't just failing to solve the crime, it was using the victim's estate as a personal cash machine. A perfect, sickening example of the graft happening within the guardianship system.
That's just Beyond corrupt.
It really is. And the conspirators, they were ruthlessly eliminating every possible witness now. There's an attorney, W. Vaughn. He'd been diligently gathering evidence against Hale.
Okay.
He apparently obtained some incriminating documents from another dying Osage man, George Big Heart, who'd been rushed to the hospital with suspected poisoning himself. Vaughn was ecstatic. He called the sheriff, announced he had everything needed to break the case wide open.
So he had the proof.
He thought he did. Shortly thereafter, Vaughn was thrown from a moving train. Murdered.
Thrown from a train.
Yes. And the crucial evidence he possessed, hidden somewhere, was stolen. It vanished.
So the death toll is just climbing and climbing. How many people are we talking about by now?
Yeah.
The official count that the later federal investigation used was at least 24 members of the tribe murdered. Observers at the time were calling it the bloodiest chapter in American crime history.
24 confirmed. And it's painfully clear the local authorities were either complicit or just completely paralyzed.
Utterly paralyzed. The situation screamed for federal intervention.
Which brings us finally to the arrival of the Bureau of Investigation, the BOI, the precursor to the FBI.
Right. And it's newly under the directorship of a very ambitious young man named J. Edgar Hoover.
Ah, Hoover.
And this case was a major political and public relations liability for Hoover. Big time. Just before this, the BOI had a huge embarrassment. An informant, this outlaw named Blackie Thompson.
Yeah.
He robbed a bank and killed a policeman while he was supposedly operating undercover for the Bureau. It made them look completely inept.
Oh, that's bad.
Very bad. Hoover desperately needed a massive, publicly visible win to save his job, maybe even the Bureau itself. He saw the Osage situation as, in his words, acute and delicate.
So, high stakes for him personally. Who did he send?
He turned to a man named Tom White, a former Texas Ranger. White was known for his integrity, his quiet professionalism, very methodical approach.
A different kind of lawman than Sheriff Freeze, then.
Oh, completely different. White assembled a team of hand-picked men. Some were these old-style cowboys that Hoover was actually trying to purge from the Bureau because they were too independent.
Interesting.
Including a formidable agent named Frank Smith. And crucially, he included John Wren.
Who was John Wren?
Wren was one of the very few American Indian agents in the Bureau at the time. He was part Ute.
And why was his inclusion so important?
It was essential because previous federal agents who'd looked into Osage matters had shown this really damaging casual prejudice towards the Osage people. Cooperation was impossible.
So Wren could build trust.
Exactly. Wren actually posed as an Indian medicine man. It gave the team this layer of trust and credibility that the investigation desperately needed. White's whole team went deep undercover, posing as cattlemen, insurance salesmen, ranchers. They had to infiltrate Osage County.
A place where, you mentioned, the records of Anna Brown's inquest had mysteriously vanished.
Not coincidentally, yes. Those records were gone.
So what was White's strategy? How did they approach it differently?
White's core method was systematic and thorough. He basically intended to eliminate the impossible by painstakingly corroborating every single suspect's alibi, no stone unturned.
Unlike the local guys who just took people at their word or relied on rumors.
Precisely. White's team went looking for witnesses the locals had either intentionally ignored or just accidentally neglected.
And did they find anything?
They found the crack they needed. It was in Brian Burkhart's story, the alibi about dropping Anna off.
What did they find?
They discovered these neglected witnesses, a farmer and his wife in the nearby town of Rolston. These people placed Brian Burkhart and Anna Brown together in a car after his stated 4:30 p.m. drop-off time.
After. So his alibi was fake?
Completely fake. These witnesses confirmed they saw Brian and Anna drinking together at a speakeasy later that evening. This single corroborated fact proved Brian had committed perjury at the inquest. It blew a huge hole in Hale's conspiracy.
Okay, that's big. Did anything else come from those witnesses?
Yes. Here's the analytical turning point, really. The witnesses also reported seeing a third man with Brian and Anna that night.
A third man. Who was it?
Through more painstaking legwork, White's team discovered the identity of this third man. It was Kelsey Morrison.
Kelsey Morrison,
No.
the bootlegger the local sheriff was supposedly cozy with.
The very same. And here's the kicker. Morrison was simultaneously acting as an informant for the BOI.
What? He was working for White's team.
He was feeding them information, yes. But he was playing this incredibly dangerous double game, also funneling information back to William Hale while pretending to cooperate with the federal agents.
Wow. Okay, so White now has proof of perjury against Brian, and he knows Morrison, his own informant, was there. What does he do?
Once White had this undeniable leverage, he moved directly on Ernest Burkhart. Molly's husband.
Who Bill Smith had named on his deathbed.
Exactly. Ernest was apparently terrified of his uncle, Hale. He later described Hale as the best man you ever saw until after you found him out and knowed him.
Quite a quote.
Isn't it? White systematically applied pressure. He confronted Ernest with the irrefutable evidence of Brian's perjury, the pattern of the murders, Bill Smith's dying words.
And did Ernest break?
Eventually, yes. He broke. Ernest confessed. He admitted to helping Hale hire other people. He named a man named John Ramsey, and even Blackie Thompson, the disgraced former BOI informant, to carry out the bombing of the Smiths and the murder of Henry Roan. And crucially, Ernest revealed the specific role Kelsey Morrison played in Anna Brown's murder.
Oh, was it?
Ernest confessed that Kelsey Morrison was the man who had put the fatal bullet in Anna Brown's head that night in the ravine.
Morrison pulled the trigger.
According to Ernest's confession, yes.
So with that confession, the motive, the mechanism, the whole plot just clicked into horrifying focus for Tom White, didn't it?
Absolutely. It led him directly to the overarching headright conspiracy. It all made sense now.
Let it out for us. How did it work?
Okay, follow the money, the headrights. Anna Brown bequeathed her wealth to her mother, Lizzie.
Right.
Lizzie's will directed her headrights to her remaining daughters, Molly and Rita.
Okay.
Rita's will, in turn, directed most of her wealth largely to her sister, Molly.
So by the time of the Smith bombing,
By the time Rita and Bill Smith were murdered, Molly Burkhart was the sole surviving heir of all the accumulated wealth and headrights of her entire immediate family, her mother, her sisters, Minnie, Anna, and Rita.
an immense fortune, all concentrated in her name.
An immense fortune. And who was Molly married to?
Ernest Burkhart.
Ernest Burkhart, who, as we now know from his own confession, was absolutely controlled by Hale.
Oh, the goal was.
The sinister goal was crystal clear. Funnel the accumulated massive headrights of the entire family to Molly, and then, through Ernest, transfer the entire fortune to William Hale.
It's just breathtakingly evil. Systematically wiping out an entire family for their inheritance.
And there was one final shocking piece of the conspiracy that was revealed. The ultimate target.
Ooh.
Molly herself.
They were going to kill Molly, too.
Yeah.
Even though she was married to Ernest.
Yes, it turned out Molly herself was being slowly murdered all along.
How?
Remember those Schown doctors?
The ones who did the autopsy and administered Rita's estate.
Yes. Molly had been receiving continuous injections from them, supposedly to treat her persistent, undiagnosed illness, likely diabetes, but maybe exacerbated. But she wasn't getting better. She was only getting weaker and sicker.
Oh my God, the doctors were in on it too.
It appears so. Molly managed to get a secret message to her Catholic priest expressing her absolute fear that she was being poisoned.
She knew something was wrong.
She sensed it. And crucially, as soon as she was removed from the control of Hale and Ernest Burkhart by the federal authorities, and those injections stopped.
She got better.
According to the sources, she immediately regained her health.
Wow. So the plan was always kill Molly last, and then Ernest inherits everything, which Hale controls.
That seems to be the inescapable conclusion, the ultimate betrayal executed by her own husband and his uncle, likely with the help of the family doctors.
It's hard to even process that level of deception. How did Molly react when she found out?
Well, initially it was denial. When she was confronted with Ernest's full confession, she apparently refused to believe it. She clung desperately to the illusion of their marriage.
What did she say?
Famously, she said, "My husband is a good man, a kind man." It just speaks volumes, doesn't it, about the psychological complexity of living under that kind of long-term calculated abuse, both emotional and physical.
It really does. So they have the confessions, they have the plot figured out. What about the trial? Was it straightforward?
Oh, not at all. The subsequent trial was pure chaos. Hale used every ounce of his immense influence and wealth to obstruct justice. Bribing witnesses, intimidating jurors, it led to charges for perjury and attempted witness tampering against several of his associates. The most dramatic moment came when Ernest, after confessing, was somehow allowed to confer privately with Hale in the judge's chambers.
Wait, the judge allowed that?
Apparently so. The very next day, Ernest Burkhart got on the stand and recanted his entire testimony. Took it all back.
Unbelievable. So the confession went out.
It created huge problems for the prosecution. Hale's friends and lawyers were predicting quite correctly at that moment that the defense had clipped the government's tail feathers good.
So how did they salvage the case? How did they get convictions?
They had to rely on other testimony. Specifically, they made a deal with Kelsey Morrison,
The trigger man.
the trigger man. Having been caught, Morrison offered gruesome details about Anna's murder in exchange for, presumably, a deal or leniency. He described how Brian Burkhart had helped prop up the drunken Anna in the car so Morrison could deliver that execution-style shot to the back of her head.
Just brutal testimony.
Brutal but effective. Morrison, Hale, and the hired bomber John Ramsey were eventually convicted in separate federal and state trials. Ernest also received a life sentence, despite his recantation.
And Molly, what did she do after all this came out?
The weight of that realization must have been just unbearable for her. She finally divorced Ernest. You have to imagine her realizing the horrifying truth. Her husband, Ernest, had stood right beside her at the ravine, feigning grief over Anna's decomposed body.
While knowing exactly who did it.
While knowing that the man who ordered the murder, his Uncle Hale, was standing mere feet away offering condolences. The psychological trauma of that specific deception is just immense.
Absolutely immense.
And the success of these convictions solving this high-profile case, it was immediately appropriated by J. Edgar Hoover back in Washington.
Hoover needed his win.
He needed his win. He completely covered up the BOI's earlier catastrophic failures, like that whole Blackie Thompson debacle. He began manufacturing this pristine origin story for the Bureau, soon to be the FBI.
How did he do that?
Through a powerful PR machine. He portrayed the Bureau as these heroes conquering the Wild West, using unheard-of science refinements against the nation's most desperate gang. He even used popular radio shows like The Lucky Strike Hour to dramatize the case and solidify this new heroic federal myth.
So he spent it for maximum Bureau glory. What about Tom White, the agent who actually led the investigation?
In stark contrast, Tom White remained this quiet, humble figure of integrity. He didn't seek the limelight. White was promoted, became warden of Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary, and ironically, he was there to shake hands with Hale and Ramsey when they arrived as inmates under his watch.
Wow. Talk about full circle.
Yeah. White later sustained a really grievous injury during a prison break attempt by other inmates, leaving him with a permanently useless arm. But he remained steadfastly humble about the Osage case, always refusing sole credit, insisting it was the good agents on his team who made the breakthrough possible.
A different breed entirely from Hoover. And Molly. What happened to her in the end?
Well, we should note her eventual, though very delayed, freedom. She remarried in 1928 to a man named John Cobb. And finally, in 1931, after years of being deemed incompetent, she was officially restored to competency by the government.
So she could control her own money.
Yes. Recognized as a full citizen who could spend her own money as she pleased, it was a form of justice, I suppose, but a partial one, secured only after losing her entire immediate family.
Partial justice is right, but the convictions of Hale, Ernest, Morrison, Ramsey. That wasn't the end of the story, was it? This reign of terror was bigger than just them.
No, not at all. That's a critical point. The BOI officially cited those 24 victims, but the true depth of the conspiracy, the real reign of terror, was far, far wider. Hale was merely the leader of the bloodiest and most visible plot, but he wasn't the only one killing Osage for their money.
How do we know that?
Well, the investigation, even the limited federal one, uncovered a systemic terror woven deeply into the local institutions, especially that guardianship system we talked about.
Right, the guardians controlling the money.
Remember Molly's guardian, Scott Mathis, the owner of the Big Hill Trading Store?
Yeah.
Government logs revealed he had 9 Osage wards under his control. 7 of them died suspiciously while under his guardianship.
7 out of 9.
7 out of 9. And another guardian, H.G. Burt, he was strongly suspected in the murder of that attorney, W.W. Vaughn.
The one thrown from the train.
Yes. Immediately after George Bighart, the Osage man Vaughn got evidence from, died, Burt became the guardian of Bighart's young daughter, taking control of her inheritance right away.
So it wasn't just Hale's circle. It was potentially many guardians, many pillars of the community.
It strongly suggests that the law itself, the guardianship system intended for protection, was actually the greatest criminal enterprise operating there.
And the methods of concealment must have required broad complicity too, right? It couldn't just be the killers.
Absolutely. Killers relied on doctors, local doctors, to falsify death certificates. They'd label these suspicious deaths as consumption or that old standby wasting illness or maybe alcoholic poison.
Plausible medical covers.
Plausible covers. And the poisons used often included things like massive morphine injections, which could simulate or accelerate a natural decline, making sure the true cause of death was obscured.
So if it wasn't just 24 victims,
Yeah.
what's the real estimate?
The consensus among scholars and investigators who've looked deeply into this is pretty clear now. The real death toll of Osage murdered for their headrights was likely In the scores, if not the hundreds.
Hundreds.
Potentially hundreds. Virtually every element of the local white society seemed to be involved or complicit to some degree. Lawmen, doctors, undertakers, merchants, and especially the appointed guardians, either in the crimes themselves or in the crucial cover-up.
That's staggering. And the impact today.
Descendants today still conduct their own investigations. They're haunted by this generational pain and the knowledge that so many perpetrators were just never brought to justice because the evidence was destroyed, the lies persisted, and the system protected its own.
It truly is a profound, searing story of betrayal. The exploitation wasn't just of the wealth, was it? It was of the sacred trust placed in those who were supposed to protect the Osage, Ernest, Hale, the guardians, the lawmen.
All of them.
There's a detail about Molly's son, James Cowboy Burkhart. He grew up in the shadow of these dark secrets. He apparently called his father, Ernest, Old Dynamite.
Old Dynamite. Tells you everything, doesn't it?
It does. And years later, after Ernest died, Cowboy apparently just took his father's ashes and threw them over a bridge. That act of just definitive rejection, it speaks volumes about the lasting, unhealable trauma.
The generational pain is just undeniable, and it's amplified by the fact that the conspiracy was so vast, so interwoven with the community. The victims' families were left trying to piece together the truth, knowing that the very people they might have relied upon, the men writing the death certificates, the men administering the estates, were quite likely the ones orchestrating the murders.
So we leave you, the listener, with this provocative thought to consider. The Osage Nation, through a twist of fate and their own foresight, were given arguably the most valuable land in America at the time. But that land came with a curse, tied inextricably to the legal framework imposed upon them. The guardianship system legally mandated that they place their wealth, and implicitly their trust, directly into the hands of the very white administrators who, in far too many cases, would ultimately plot their murder and then control their funerals.
When you see that combination, unchecked wealth, deep-seated racial prejudice, and unaccountable institutional authority, what does it tell us about the nature of power and corruption?
It shows us, I think, that the very structures of law designed to govern and protect society can become, in the wrong hands, the instruments of the greatest crime imaginable.